Hello, everybody. I want to welcome you back to the Dynamic Decisions podcast, where we explore strategies that drive successful decision-making in the world of business. Why? Because the best decisions come from great conversations. I'm your host, Teasha Cable, CEO of C-Model Data, and today we have an exceptional guest who is a pioneer in brand storytelling and strategic partnerships. Her name is Megan. She's the executive chairman at Magnet Media. With nearly 25 years of experience, Megan has transformed the landscape of digital storytelling, and now she's guiding Magnet Media into the next phases of growth. Megan, welcome to the show. I'm so thrilled to have you here today. Would you start by sharing a little bit about Magnet Media and the exciting work that you're doing as executive chairman?
Well, thank you so much, Teasha, and it's such an honor to be on your show. I really appreciate the invitation. So, first of all, wanted to state that Magnet Media is a company, again, that I founded 25 years ago with an incredible team. And the key to our success has always been about the team. And I am honored and thrilled to say that I passed the torch as CEO earlier this year to Michelle Vincent. So I just wanted to share that she's a partner in crime. So any accolades that the company gets from here on out are really on her watch. But as executive chairman, I'm now looking at, some of the strategic and creative opportunities in the brand storytelling landscape. It's a very dynamic landscape. And I'm also launching a net new venture, which is really building out our IP. It's a sister company called Magnet Originals. So I've just recently formed that organization. We're going to be announcing some partnerships with global media giants in the coming weeks. So it's a great time for us to be in conversation because there's so much going on at the intersection of data and storytelling.
Wow, this is great. And I want to dig in a little bit about your decision. So you've been called a pioneer in using data and storytelling to drive impact over these past 20 years. But this decision to transition is pretty significant. And shout out to Michelle. Congratulations on your new role. What drove the strategic part of this decision? How are you actually going to up this next chapter?
It's a great question. Yes. Thank you for asking. There are a couple of things. First of all, 25 years is a really long time to be in any role. While I cherish it, and it was very challenging on an emotional and psychological level to leave behind the team that I love and that I worked with, day in, day out for so long. And just as a note, we're very proud that we've had a very high retention from some of our key folks. So my COO, Jim Matarowski, was there for 10 years, is there for 10 years. He's about to celebrate his 11th year with the company. Jordana Pransky, who leads growth, is relatively new. She's been there, I think, 3 years, but has been just a champion of our growth and has done rock star level performance. So, and then Craig Lubman, who runs our financial services practice, has also been there over 10 years, I believe, or maybe just shy of 10 years. So Francis Messiah, 14 years. So a lot of long time, incredible, sort of team contributors. And then we have also some new blood that has come in, again, over the last 5, but that are really engaged. They treat it like their own company. And that's just an entrepreneur's dream, right? To form something and to have other people really treat the team relationships like family, number one, and number two, the work level with the highest level of integrity and investment, right? And so I think that those are the two things that have been true since our very beginnings, and they're true today. And that's just like a really super special culture that I wanted to make sure we preserved. And so as I looked at, we've grown to a certain scale and level of profitability, and, I'm really thrilled for that. It was not easy, as with most pioneers, right? You can imagine there's a lot of shrapnel and thinking about the story of every pioneer, right? A lot of frostbite on some level, or there were lost limbs and things. We didn't quite have that level of suffering, but it was close. But I would say last 5 years especially, we really hit our stride and have just grown on a record level with great profitability, tremendous feedback from clients, huge team retention, like all the key metrics that we care about, we were delivering on. And at the same time, what I recognized was taking this company to the next level, what the next 25 years looked at, frankly, required a different skill set that was not organic to me. And that's about scaling, repeatable process, putting in governance, putting in new levels of innovation that are baked into the way in which the company goes to market with new offerings. Obviously, AI is the topic of du jour and probably of the decade. And so, thinking through what that next level of transformation and growth would require, I thought there's people who frankly do this type of work much better than I do. I'm very proud of the work and the talents that I have, which is taking something from zero to amazing, right? But from amazing to repeatable excellence, I guess I would say, right? That real really scaled business that is world class and that fulfills the opportunity that a brand storytelling firm that is global could deliver on. That's not necessarily what I do best. And so I looked around the industry and talked to some very legendary leaders. And the very first conversation I had was with Michelle, who ended up being our star candidate that we offered the role to. I'm just so humbled and thrilled that she's taken on the CEO role. We're so fortunate to have creative and sales leaders and strategy leaders who are extraordinary.
Wow. So first of all, you're the queen of employee retention. Congratulations on that. That is awesome to have that many people to come along your journey with you, because that level of consistency you could only hope for when you're an entrepreneur. Then I really appreciate you being super self-aware here and kind of like knowing when to fold them, right? Know when to walk away, know when to run, right? But you just kind of said, great, I know that I could get someone to come in and help us to take a certain part of what we need to do and move it forward. So that level of understanding on how to create succession in your company, I think is something completely missing in the entrepreneurial education space. I'm not sure that anyone's talking to us about those things. You get the 0 to 1 down, but then you need that second part, right? So very good stuff.
I appreciate that. And I think that it can be very challenging. We were in a privileged position. It was a hard decision at the time, but a privileged position over time where we didn't raise outside investment. We were revenue financed. And so the benefit of that is you really determine your own future. And so I think it can be much trickier to make those decisions when you do have, a VC backed board or strategic investors, and they are looking to you like, Teasha, you sold me on this vision. Like, what do you mean you're not going to be here for the next 10 years or whatever? I think it's a little more difficult to be objective. But thank you for those notes, because I do feel like, for me, it was really crystal clear that this required a different style of leadership. And again, I have great respect for Michelle and what she does, but I know it's also not in me to have that kind of a approach to the day to day. And so the business is really in a growth mode and needs that kind of leader.
So what is also good, a little nugget for the audience here. So your decisions actually determine your future. So what you decide about how you grow is really a significant set of decisions to make. So for example, do I take venture capital or do I not? Do I grow exponentially or do I grow sustainably? These are sort of questions that you should be assessing along the way. So I want to talk a little bit about, so you've worked with some incredible brands, Google, Adobe, Goldman Sachs, LinkedIn. Can you take us through a specific campaign where the data didn't completely meet the narrative direction as you had planned? Was there a pivot moment there that maybe you can share with us? Because I'm really fascinated by it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that's a great question. Look, I think one of our most cherished campaigns, which recently swept some awards, is in partnership with JPMorgan Chase. And Samantha Saperstein in particular, who runs the Women on the Move team over there. And Sam has been an incredible leader. She was formerly the CMO of the commercial bank and just has a stellar career and reputation. And we were talking about what could be, when she took on the Women on the Move role, what could be a great platform for her to help develop the message and scale all the goodness that was happening both within the bank and externally within female leadership. we talked about a lot of different options, video series, blogs, newsletters, et cetera. And we arrived at podcasts. And that was really a very data-driven opportunity. We were looking at, and again, this is like, I'm going to say like 8 years ago, maybe it's been a while, right? In terms of the show and the longevity. But at the time, a lot of brands were not, very few brands, I should say, especially in enterprise, were commissioning their own podcast. That is something obviously that you're doing brilliantly. But that, and it is, I would say, more of a common practice as a for leaders to do, as far as like you write your best-selling book on your thought leadership and you have your podcast, and that's a amazing way to really get the word out about your particular perspective and sort of strategic thinking about a topic, right? That's unique. But that didn't exist really as a common practice when we were talking about Women on the Move having a podcast. And so it took a lot of socializing internally and bringing to bear data and data science and audience intelligence around the fact that this would be really well received. There was a gap in the market for Sam's voice, and to create a platform both for her and for the bank around this topic and around this community that they had already started to build. The operating committee had built it for decades internally, but nobody really knew about it. It was like kind of a refresh and an expansion of the brand. And so with that, I'll say that that was both her passion for the topic and great relationships that she had built in terms of helping us manage that constituent map, and a lot of the data and sort of business case that we provided and that supported why this would be a good format for it. And the fact that podcasting was not just a single asset, that you could create social assets from it. You could have transcripts on the site that would be clips for the newsletter and the media, and that you could travel to places like Davos, which we ended up shooting several years worth of episodes at the World Economic Forum. And it would really just open up the doors for relationship building, which is one of the key deliverables of the show. That included both, sort of the qualitative relationships and the quantitative data that helped build the case for that show. And it's been a huge success that continues to this day. And like I said, that continues to rack up awards and audience.
I love it. I was going to say this leads me to someone, but to sound really profound, but I'm going to move to the next question that I have because it's more profound than my little off the head thought that I had. So you had a quote once that I really identified with. You said, "The magic happens when we use data to uncover meaningful narratives and then craft those narratives in a way that speaks to the heart as well as the mind." Can you give a really good example of how you've applied this philosophy with your clients?
The heart and the mind, yes. Look, I think that I'll give you a little bit of backstory, which is that we're making 35,000 micro decisions a day. So most successful.
Come on, 35,000. You guys got that? 35,000 micro decisions a day. Okay.
That's everything from when to caffeinate to what shirt should I wear today, right? And that's everything, right? But it's a lot. And I think, if you look at most successful people, most people know that, famously Steve Jobs wore the same, black turtleneck on or black t-shirt on an ongoing basis. To really remove those automated decisions, right? To preserve mental energy and to systematize those smaller decisions so that he could have a lot more brain power freed up to apply to the more impactful areas that he needed to be thinking about, processing, mulling over, etc. And the results were, very famous.
Well, yes, we've seen them. Yes.
So I think that's one thing, just in terms of like most people know the story about the fact that, a lot of people now have copied that, right? In terms of wearing the same thing every day or, whatever it is, having this just one set of shoes and 5, versions of them so that when they wear out, et cetera, but just so that they don't have to think about some of the systematic decisions. And I think that's a head and the heart decision in some ways, because it preserves your passion and your brain capacity for the areas that you're drawn to and that, really tie to your purpose and mission.
Come on, preserve your passion. Oh my goodness. Go for it. Keep going. Yeah.
But I'll say that, like, for some people I know, like, it would be heartbreaking for them to wear the same thing every day, because a lot of their passion is in personal expression and fashion is one of those elements. So they want to mix it up every day. That's part of how they are fueling their day-to-day fulfillment and
Mhm.
expressing who they are. Whereas maybe where they work or what computer they use or something like that, the other people feel like, oh, those are things that like I need to, create a lot of variety. That for them, it needs to be more routine because they're putting a lot of energy into their wardrobe. And yet if they have a 8 a.m., I'm going to show up at this desk, every day, then that kind of like removes the weight of swirling on, oh, should I go into the office? Can I, should I work from a coffee shop? I don't know. Should I, be near my son's school, et cetera? Like there's so many of those 35,000 decisions that I think a lot of us take them on as unique opportunities every day. And that's what the result of a lot of stress and anxiety, frankly. Whereas if you can kind of divide those up and say, which of these matter to me? And do I want to customize? And do I want to break it down versus which of these can I just literally make it almost like military level discipline, same choice every day, removing it from my decision-making matrix? That'll, I think, empower you as a decision maker to put more energy into the things that matter for you.
So good. So I was just noodling with my team on this idea. We're a decision intelligence company, right? Our goal is to help people make decisions. And so I was noodling with the team on this idea of like, we've got this barrier with people, but you just opened one thing up because we're like, some people want to explore. Every decision is an exploration of some type, right? And some people just want to get to it. I know what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to get to the options so I can weigh them. So you just kind of gave a kind of hard head way of thinking about or categorizing what people, some are just creative.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love that framing. I love that framing of the explorer and the sort of get it done, kind of person, right? I love that because that's obviously in the makeup of a great team. You need both, right? You need a
You
dreamer,
need both.
right? Who's
Yeah.
going to put their impossible vision out there to inspire and aspire to for everyone. And you need the tactical, like, deadlines tomorrow, folks. Like, okay, let's bring those dreams back down to reality, because if you have only one or on the team, right, then it's like you'll just be like in fantasy land forever and you'll probably go out of business eventually. And if you only have the, get it done, then it's a pretty like soulless organization that will probably have struggled to do anything impactful. So I think that the balance within an organization is also really key between those characteristics that you mentioned.
Absolutely. You just broke down a whole barrier, something that we've been discussing a lot. And so I really appreciate that because it actually gives us some unique insight as a company as to how we can keep helping people to navigate that. So Magnet has become known for creating these IPO roadshow films. So you help a company to tell their story as they go public. That is really high stakes storytelling, right?
Yeah.
How do you actually balance complexity that goes along with that and creating really emotional, compelling narratives that investors are going to remember? How do you do that?
Yes, thank you for that. So IPO storytelling has been a fascinating journey within the industry, especially we work with a lot of financial services and tech firms. And so obviously a lot of those are having their initial public offering. And shout out to my colleague, Michael Harris on the New York Stock Exchange. He's done a tremendous job at forming a community of leaders, both within the startup community and those who are already public within those heralded walls of the exchange. But I'll say that in that process of forming a startup's initial public offering story, right, went from a place where, years ago, it was a very small group of institutional investors that would be backing an IPO. Often the roadshow, as they call it, right, the investment bank would take the startup founder on a bit of a roadshow and they would go and do PowerPoint presentations to those that could potentially invest ahead of the public. And that would involve a lot of salesmanship and a lot of, persuasion, a lot of door opening. But it was like very human. It was like one by one, very tangible, very analog. And what happened was actually right around when Facebook went public, I think Mark might have been one of the first people to do this with all of his flaws and contributions. He said, this is a kind of a dull and old school way of doing this. What if we were to make a documentary about everything that Facebook is? And so they were among the first, I don't know if they were the actual first, but among the first to conceive of this. And now it's really standard practice that when a brand takes themselves or is taken public, I should say, They are telling a story from many different dimensions, but usually on film. And what that's opened up has been, now we have retail investors, we have all kinds of different parties who can join forces with the initial public offering. And as that happens, enables the storytelling to scale. If you can watch a video and you can check out, okay, this company called Sweet Green or this company called, StubHub or whatever is about to go public. Let me check out. I think I've heard of them or I've been a customer, but I don't really know anything about the business. Like, let me check that out. It doesn't require you to go through dry, sort of like PowerPoint slides just around potential earning reports and
right. No one wants that.
Balance sheets. Yeah. Information is critical, but it's also the story behind it. What's the reason why this business is going public, that they need to raise capital from new sources, and how are they going to deploy it? What's their vision? For us, the IPO storytelling also is a very smart opportunity for businesses to do a strategic storytelling asset gathering. And so we do capture a ton of very valuable storytelling moments. One that's a product demo or a services explainer. Another that's customer storytelling. And all these assets can actually be recut. So if you had call it 20 to 40 minute IPO film, within that, you're capturing hours and hours of material, whether it's on animation or live action or both. And those little assets can be used for the sales team. So you can have a product demo in there that now is a beautiful video product demo. That's a gorgeous set of customer stories. And those are really powerful in helping to drive and scale the business from a sales and marketing perspective.
Yeah, I think what's also important here is one has to keep track of things over the course of their experience. So that becomes really important to support your narrative development over time. So you're not just going to pop up one day as a company to IPO and you have no information that you've tracked over the course of time to help support that story. Hey, for our audience, I want you to think about your own experiences with storytelling in business. What decisions have you made that significantly impacted your brand narrative? Share your thoughts with us on LinkedIn and other social media using Dynamic Decisions Podcast. I'm going to kind of jump into my favorite segment, which is to really identify your decision-making persona. Okay. So the way that this happens is I'm going to ask 4 questions and you'll get to decide between 0 to 100% how much you sort of resonate with that. I'll explain the persona as well. And we're just going to scale it out, right? 0 to 100%. How much do you identify with this type of persona? Here's the first one. It's called the feeler. It's a values-driven leader. This persona prioritizes alignment with core values and mission, often weighing the human impact and cultural fit of decisions alongside business metrics. Here's the type of question a feeler would ask. When I'm facing a major business decision, I ask myself, does this align with our core values and mission to create a more empathetic world? Even if it's the more profitable option, I need to feel good about the impact we're making and ensure our choices reflect who we are as people and as a company. What percentage of you resonates with this persona?
I say
100%. You only get 100.
That's tough. I mean, I think it's values are everything. I mean, I think a lot of what we do in our offsite is talk about our values and talk about, sort of what kind of culture we want to build, what kind of impact we want to leave. So boy, I can't be 100. I guess maybe 75.
All right, 75. That means you only got 25 less. Let's see. You can always change something. You can always make an adjustment. Here's the second one. It's called the planner. It's a strategic visionary. This persona focuses on long-term implications and future-proofing their decisions, always thinking several moves ahead and considering multiple scenarios. When I'm making a strategic decision, I ask myself, what are the long-term implications of this choice? I need to map out scenarios for the next 3 to 5 years, consider how industry trends might evolve, and ensure this decision positions us well for multiple possible futures, not just the immediate opportunity. How much of you resonates with that?
Oh my goodness. So I will say just my quick anecdote is we had to form a 3-year plan in order to pursue the right CEO for the future. So I've recently gone through this exercise, but generally speaking, we've been in such a dynamic space that we haven't really formed many long-term plans. So over my 25 years, I'd say 5%.
Okay, 5%. That leaves 20 left for the next two. Here we go. The counter, challenger of assumptions. This persona naturally questions conventional wisdom and looks for contrarian opportunities, often finding success by zigging when others zag. When evaluating opportunities, I ask myself, what assumptions are we making here that might be wrong? What is everyone else in the industry doing that we should question? I tend to dig into why things are done a certain way and whether there's a better approach we're not seeing.
I love this. Okay, I'm going to knock the first one down from 75 then to to maybe 40, because I'd say that this one's probably like 40, to be totally candid. I think a lot about zagging when others zig.
Fantastic. That's really good. My CTO is this persona.
Really?
Oh my goodness, this is him. Just going through it, I'm like, oh, Dr. Muzz. Okay. Here we go. This last one is called the data driver. Evidence-based decision maker. This persona relies heavily on metrics, analytics, and concrete evidence to validate decisions, preferring proof over intuition. So before making important decisions, I ask myself, what does the data actually tell us? I want to see concrete metrics, test results, and evidence-based insights that can validate or contradict our instincts. I'm looking for patterns and proof points that can guide us toward the most effective choice. How much of this resonates with you?
So I will say probably half the decisions I make are data-driven, but not 100%. The reason being that I really do subscribe to the Jeff Bezos framework of one-way doors being irreversible decisions that need to, require careful and diligent analysis, and then two-way doors that are, you can make them quickly and make adjustments because they're flexible in terms of their consequences. With that in mind, what's remaining?
You got 15. You got 15 to work with. All 15. Okay, awesome. So you are 40% feeler, 5% planner, 40% counter, and 15% data driver. You can take that to your team. Yeah, awesome. Very nice. Thank you so much. So I have one last question as we wrap up here. My last question is, if you could give one piece of advice to an aspiring leader who wants to build something as impactful and enduring as Magnet, what would it be?
Well, as it relates to decision making, I learned late into my career the 10-10-10 rule, which is as you make a decision, you think about how am I going to feel about this in 10 minutes, which you can wait 10 minutes and find out. How am I going to feel about this in 10 months? And how am I going to feel about this in 10 years? And the reason why I really love that framework is that we all as leaders have, especially entrepreneurial leaders, have a lot of decisions that we have to make. And I think that parsing out the emotional sort of reactive from the more substantive or thoughtful is really hard when you're working at breakneck pace and have to make a lot of decisions that have high consequences, right? You're a startup, you probably have limited resources and a small team, and yet you're making a lot of decisions really quickly. So I love that 10-10-10 rule. It really, for me, gives me a chance to be reflective enough, but not overthink things. And that in combination with the one-way and two-way doors, I think have been two frameworks that I really rely on for decision making.
I think that that's fantastic, and your advice here has been fantastic and insightful. It's been such a pleasure having you on the show, Megan. Your expertise and strategic leadership is inspirational. Can you share with our leaders where they can learn more about you and Magnet Media?
Thank you so much, Teasha. It's been a pleasure and an honor to be in conversation with you. You're such a gifted conversationalist and interviewer and podcast host.
Thank you.
Definitely find me on LinkedIn. That's the place where I spend the most time, I would say, when I'm on screens. And yeah, I hope to see everyone at upcoming industry events. And I hope you get a chance to meet Michelle and the team as well from the Magnet Media. And stay tuned for some updates coming up on Magnet Originals as well.
Fantastic. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Remember, the best decisions come from great conversations. If you've enjoyed this episode, we'd love for you to subscribe, rate it, share it with your network. Let's keep the conversation going on social media using Dynamic Decisions Podcast. Until next time, keep questioning, keep growing, and keep leading with purpose.